Okay, so now we're to pull in our first caller. His name is Zach. Is it no? Is that correct? Is it Zach? Yes.
Yeah,
Sorry,
Zach
I
works,
see Zach
or
on Zoom,
Yoder,
but I don't
whatever
see
you
it.
want to call me. I'm a teacher.
Okay.
I usually go by my last name.
Okay.
Used to that.
Gotcha. Yeah. So you're a Christian, right? Playing the role of a skeptic. What's going on?
Yeah, so I was gonna come in here and actually ask about the finger length, but that just got covered while I was waiting. So I got a couple more challenges for you though, Joe.
Yeah.
So, because I'm a teacher and I'm a teacher at a private school, one of the things I do is teach religion. And during religion class, I cover things like the Shroud of Turin. For me, as a Catholic, Eucharistic miracles, things of that nature. My students are very interested in, like we all are, physical evidence, especially
Hmm.
in an age of scientism or hyper rationalism like today. That's why I think the Shroud of Turin is so important. But there's also a couple challenges that my students offer and that I offer when I think about the shroud. And that includes when we look at the pollen analysis on the shroud, let's take that as an example. Couldn't that, while it's used as evidence, be the case that it's just caused by cross contamination with other artifacts?
Um, well, the shroud has been in contact with artists' copy. We know copies that they made, and I imagine they've come from long distances. Some of them, although I would imagine, given the difficulty of travel in those centuries, most of them were probably closer to um, the area where the shroud was when they tried to sanctify their copy, and it would becomes like a second class relic. The pollen analysis, they've found some pollens on the shroud that are specifically restricted to an area very close to the Dead Sea and Jerusalem. And, pollen can also be carried by wind. The pollen experts seem to think that there's also some indication that some of the ointments found on the shroud were used in burials in the Middle East. So the original guy that did the first pollen research was Dr. Max Frey from the Zurich police, and he did a lot of research, but unfortunately died in 1983 before he was able to publish anything. And some other paleontologists have picked up his work. There was a recent a botanist at Hebrew University, the late Dr. Avinoam Danin, and he swore that the shroud had numerous pollens and remnants of flowers and different things from the Jerusalem area. In fact, he wrote a whole book, which I would recommend if you're interested in the pollen. It's called The Botany of the Shroud of Turin. He was Israel's foremost botanist, and the booklet is called Botany of the Shroud of Turin. His last name is Danin, Danin. First name is Avi Noam. And I think the book is probably still available, possibly on Amazon, or should be able to find it anywhere, somewhere
Okay.
online. So I would recommend that. There's pollen research is some people have backtracked a little bit on it, and like I say, Max Frey died early, and a lot more work needs to be done. But I think it's one piece of the puzzle, certainly an important one, and I hope further research will be done. There's also an excellent researcher in Spain named, I think it's Marza, Marzia, and her last name is, I don't know how to pronounce it. It's Boi. Very simple last name, and she's been presenting some papers on the shroud at various conferences recently. And I know one or two of her articles are available online, either on shroud.com or possibly academia. Or, there's one or two other sources. But if you do a Google search on her, but put her name in and shroud, um, you should be able to find some couple articles from her as well.
Wonderful, thank you. And then there's also dirt analysis, right? They found like limestone on the shroud. Is that true?
Yes. Yeah, limestone that's found in Jerusalem. Sometimes depending on who the author, when they write about that, they will say it's exclusively limited to Jerusalem. Some skeptics will say, "Oh no, you can find limestone like that in other areas." But it does. There was a former archaeologist, Middle Eastern archaeologist named Damian Natowski, and she did some experiments in a tomb in Jerusalem in 1986, and had a chemist named Joseph Kolbeck with her, and they tried to do some image formation experiments to see how it possibly could have been formed. And I think I'm pretty sure they found limestone as well, but other researchers later later than their research in 1986 found some as well. But if you want to look up, her last name is Natowski, Nitowski. Her first real name was Eugenia. She also went by Sister Damien of the Cross. She was a Carmelite nun for a while. But those sorts of things, I think they're not foolproof. I mean, you get skeptics, on any aspect of the shroud, really. But the pollen and limestone, those chemical signatures, I think, are very important, especially if you could link them to Jerusalem. Now, this isn't on pollen or limestone, but just as another example, there's a sewing technique that was discovered on the shroud that matches to a cloth that was found at Masada that was destroyed by the Romans in 70 AD, and the sewing technique found on that Masada cloth is also found on the shroud. Now, again, I don't know if you want to say that's 100% proof that. I don't think you could say that proves alone that the shrouds from the first century. So maybe other people in the first century in other locales could have done that as well. But there's a lot of clues that seem to point toward Jerusalem. I think when you put all the pieces of the puzzle together, you have to ask, all right, when you have 20 pieces of data that point towards something, are you going to try to come up with ad hoc explanations of why it's not pointing to a Jerusalem origin? People can play all sorts of intellectual games with data. If you look at the overall picture, to me, everything is suggesting a Jerusalem origin.
Yeah, the main objection I've heard is just cross-contamination, right? That it's been around a lot of stuff, so it's bringing in all that pollen, all that dirt from other things. So that's, I know, the main objection to that. But as you're saying, you can find, I guess, reasons to doubt it, right? No matter what. So I'm wondering about the lashes on the shroud. So I've heard a lot of varying numbers regarding to the lashes on the man on the shroud, as low as around 100, as many as 300. How would you respond if someone said that those numbers are wildly inconsistent, and that it just goes to show that there's not enough solid evidence on the man? Like, we don't even know how many lashes are on him.
Yeah. Well, I think the answer to that is that the fact that the Roman flagrum usually had 3 straps, so one lash would give you 3 marks. Some of the researchers are talking about the number of lashes, and some of them are talking about the specific marks made by the three-pronged metal or bone that was attached to the stick that they use. So I think that's basically the difference in the discrepancy.
Okay.
All right, Zach, thanks for calling in. I definitely appreciate you coming in. Enjoy your summer off if you are off during the summer. You said you were a teacher.
Yes, so. I am. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for calling in. Thanks for your questions.